Wow. Good thing you're paying me a lot of money for this talk. Well, you know, here's what helped me. Growing up, I had no Jews in my world, growing up in Livonia. We made fun of the little Jewish ladies driving the big cars in Southfield. God forgive me for that. And then growing up as a prison chaplain and working for justice, not knowing any Jewish people, I looked at the situation in the Middle East as being that the Jewish community was dead wrong. That to them might make right. They were getting away with things, but they were oppressing and occupying, and it was, for me, it was green and blue, or green and white, or maize and blue. It was clear. Then I'm meeting Jews. I'm meeting Jews like I had met Ilham Muhammad and all my Muslim friends, and I'm starting to it's getting more complicated, the Middle East. It's not as easy for me to understand. And I say that because I think for anyone who has suffered, when somebody understands your suffering, those of you who had a bad marriage or a child sick, or whatever something that you're struggling with, and someone says, I understand how you feel. What a blessing, huh? So the Jews have suffered, and you get 5,000 years of Jewish suffering right into Israel. You can't separate. Certainly the Holocaust is the engine that drives that. So I think if you're going to engage the Jews and want to be able to be understood as Muslims, or people who identify with the Palestinian suffering, the Gazan suffering, as many Christians and Muslims do, you've got to, I think we owe it to our Jewish sisters and brothers to hear their suffering. And then, once we do that, we're wounded healers, because there's suffering on both sides of Muslims, from whether it was in Srebrenica or wherever Muslims have suffered. That's a common universal experience. So you can share that experience of suffering and injustice, and maybe together move toward some understanding. But we're not going to solve the Middle East from Detroit. I think as we get involved in trying to solve that, or deal with how America is acting inappropriately around the world, and it's embarrassing. I mean, some people are really proud to be an American. I can't say, I'm sorry, my dad was in the Navy. I wasn't. I saw John Kennedy get shot. I saw Watergate. I saw Martin Luther King get shot. I just grew up not being one of these flag-waving Americans. But I can't get as caught up in about what's happening around the world as what's happening locally. So I think if Muslims and Jews come locally. So this summer there was a statement about Gaza. And the Michigan Roundtable didn't sign it because our friends who are the rabbis and Kerry Alter and other Jewish leaders, they didn't sign it. Just like I wouldn't sign a statement if no imams or Muslims, if Dawud and Imam Layla didn't sign it, and yet all my Jewish friends and some liberal Muslims were signing it, I wouldn't sign it because that would betray my trust that I'm an even-handed broker with you. So maybe in talking to the Muslims and Jews, talking together, you're going to come up with a statement of your own that's going to reflect more justice here in the United States. And maybe from that platform you can eventually look out there. But the Jews are fearful. The Jewish leaders are fearful. I think when Ahmadinejad's statement was mistranslated, right, several years ago, one, Jews shouldn't exist, Holocaust never happened, we want to put you in the ocean, and by the way, we got the bomb. So Jews have been frightened since then, right? So they're coming from a place of fear. This is the way they feel. I'm the messenger, not the message, right? I'm the piano player. I don't believe that. But I'm saying, I have dear friends who are Jewish people. This one, Rabbi Bergman, Aaron Bergman, he writes for the Trade News like Imam Elahi, Muhammad Ali Elahi. They both write columns. And he wrote this nasty column about Muslims, and I went and saw him. He was at the academy at the Jewish Community Center. Now he is at Adab Shalom in Farmington Hills. I went and sat with him. I go, why are you bashing my Muslim friends? That was bad. And he said, because at the end of the day, he talked about his father, who's a Holocaust survivor. And after Ahmadinejad's comments and some global developments, his father started to relive the Holocaust. And his father, he saw his dear father suffering. So he was acting out of his pain. I said, well, quit bashing my Muslim friends, you know. This is, you know, but anyway, I don't know if I answered it clearly. I think being in relationship with the Jewish community, finding a common issue or a common experience will eventually lead us to that, and it will make you less of a mystery to the Jewish community, because they may try to paint all Muslims with the same brush. And that's so unfair because Islam isn't a monolith, eh? I mean, it's the universal world religion. Dawud, did you want me to go somewhere else with that? I mean,
yeah, I think also for the broader, with the broader American public, not just Jews,
you know.
when they see us, and certain words we might use, or certain phrases, like for example, how some Muslims may use the term Zionist, but not use the term Israeli, out of not wanting to accept that Israelis actually are citizens of the state, or how perhaps when they see Muslims at rallies, and sometimes there's the stereotypical angry Muslim at the rally holding a sign that has the Star of David and then Nazi written over it, for example. Can you tell us, how do the broader American public, or people in your congregation, view these types of things?
Well, it doesn't serve Muslims well. I mean, Dawud, you then one time spoke out against it yourself, because David is a key figure in Islam, and when people were being, anti-Semitic, they were being anti the core of what we believe. I think that those rallies are dangerous. I think the rallies should be with the human family. The polarization, many of those Jews, if you get them privately, and other Americans, not just Jews, but feel similar about the Middle East. They're embarrassed by Israelis' policies. They aren't happy with the bombing Gaza as it was. They're very embarrassed by it. But if they're speaking in public, they close ranks. You know, very few of the Jewish leaders will sing off a different choir, a different piece of paper. But when privately, they are very embarrassed, and they'll tell you that. So I think, I think vilifying Israel, one could understand why you want to do that, and have the nasty signs and anger. There are some people in the community who are going to stay mad and angry, but Allah works best with love, I think. And so you can only love when you're thinking about these in the presence of a Jew, or in the presence of a Christian who cares about Palestine and justice in the Middle East. So I would just say, I guess to your point, try not to polarize this issue. We're not going to solve it here, but together we're going to do some things here. Maybe we'll make Detroit the new Jerusalem. I mean, we've got great numbers of Jews and Muslims here. This is where we live. We don't live in the Middle East.
I have one other question I could pose before we open to the floor.
Be easier this time.
Okay, I'll try to make it a little easier. We know that in the United States of America, the Constitution of these United States of America is viewed as almost as a sacred document, and especially the Bill of Rights, the first of these being the First Amendment. And we have, there are cherished sacred principles in there to the broader American public, and I'm specifically speaking of freedom of speech and freedom of the press. And I'd like for you to elaborate for us that how does the broader community feel when they hear about the Muslim community protesting certain things, or trying to get papers to not distribute the movie Obsession, or how the story ran recently about Zachariah Boutros in the paper, and how he said some things about the Prophet Muhammad, and there were campaigns to call the radio station and get him booted off the air, and not to have people such as him be allowed to say certain things.